It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does, and great to have you with us on this Wednesday edition of the show. We got a lot to talk about. Kurt Helin will be here, pro basketball talk at NBCSports.com. NBA draft and offseason news, trades, everything you need to know for the draft as well. We'll also be joined by Dale Scott, former big league umpire as well. Get some thoughts with him on all things Major League Baseball, the state of play as it relates to Major League Baseball umpiring. But we start things out in the NFL, and Sam Yarnell is here. And Sam, your favorite guy we get to talk to start the show today, because Aaron Rodgers kind of made it official yesterday. So Michael Jordan had Ahmad Rashad back in the NBA on NBC days. That was the only guy Michael Jordan would talk to. Pat McAfee has, or I should say Aaron Rodgers has Pat McAfee. That's the only guy that he'll talk to one-on-one. Yesterday on the Pat McAfee Show, Aaron Rodgers saying it looks like, sounds like, smells like, feels like next season, this upcoming season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, will be his final season in the NFL. The last ride, Sam Yarnell, for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, right. And you know what else he said? He also said that once he retires, Jason, you don't expect to see much of him anymore. He's just going to fade back into the shadows. The same guy who tried to be the host of Jeopardy while playing in the NFL is now telling us that he's going to retire and just not be relevant anymore, because that's what he could do as a person. Of all the things we know about Aaron Rodgers, we know that he could survive without hearing his name in the news. This is obviously a bunch of hokum. Do I believe that he's going to retire after this season? No.
Really?
Do I believe he is literally doing... He is taking the book of Brett Favre and reading page by page at this point. I mean, it's not even, you go from the Packers to the Jets to a historic NFL organization and throw a couple retirement threats in there. It's literally the Brett Favre recipe. Next thing you know, he's going to be taking welfare money from the state of California.
Allegedly.
Because that's just the next progression in this whole story. It's just how it all works out. You win a Super Bowl in Green Bay, you try to a couple of other places, you lose relevance the whole time, and then eventually you're caught up and federally indicted. It's how this kind of thing works. We've quite literally seen this movie before. I do think that there's an interesting nugget in here, though, about Pat McAfee, as weird as that is. I think that there are a ton of red flags going up in Pat McAfee's eyes right now. And I think that he's becoming very nervous very quickly because he, like Aaron Rodgers, lives and thrives off of relevance, off of other people talking about him. And now in the past week and a half, Pat McAfee has seen ESPN turn on him for seemingly the third time since his tenure there began. He's seen
explain to people why you're saying that.
Oh, well, if you missed it last week, there was a whole fallout of Adam Schefter finally going back onto the Pat McAfee Show after it came out that he openly said to ESPN executives that he would not go on, which led to the Pat McAfee Show, an ESPN production, having Ian Rappaport, an NFL Network reporter and direct competitor of Adam Schefter, an ESPN employee, as a regular guest on their show. So that was that's one red flag going up in Pat McAfee's mind. Another one is now Aaron Rodgers, who, if you think back to when this whole Pat McAfee thing really blew up, it was during COVID when Aaron Rodgers would only go on Pat McAfee's show, and he was having all these contract fallouts with the Green Bay Packers at the time. So Pat McAfee, seeing Aaron Rodgers threatening retirement, sees a lot of his viewers going with Aaron Rodgers when he retires. Compound all of that with overnight the internet wrestling community seemingly getting into a massive beef with Pat McAfee. So now he can't even go back to his original home with WWE because he seems unwanted there. Jason, I do think that the Aaron Rodgers thing is an interesting nugget, and he's not a relevant quarterback, but it is going to be fun to talk about as that team crashes and burns this season. But the real story here is Pat McAfee is going to start grasping at straws real quick.
Well, there's been a lot of conversations and people talking about the McAfee stuff, and there's been no shortage of conversation on my end on the McAfee thing. As it relates to Aaron Rodgers, I do think this is the last ride for him. I don't think he'd put this out there if he wasn't. And look, this goes back to something we had happen with another former Steelers quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, who started floating the idea of it, when it was going to be his last season. And how did that season go for him? It wasn't very good. And that's part and parcel, I think, of the problem here. When you start thinking retirement, and this is why I laughed when McAfee yesterday on the show was like, oh, his last season, he's going out with a bang. Look at the shape he's in. Look at him running on the beach with his shirt off. Oh, my goodness. It was a little homoerotic for me, if you ask me personally, how McAfee was talking about him. But take that, cast it aside for a second. When somebody's thinking retirement, they're already retired. So then that leads you to ask the question, why are we going through the charade? Why are we going through this upcoming season? If Aaron Rodgers is already planning on this being his last season, why are we going through the charade of a last season? Does he really think that we're going to catch lightning in a bottle and in this 1 year, he's going to gel and mesh and everything's going to go perfect and Mike Tomlin and him and this receiving core? Oh, wait. They don't really have a receiving core. And it's all just going to go perfect, and they're going to win a Super Bowl in Pittsburgh. Does that really seem real? Say it all out loud, Steeler fans. Say it out loud. I know you're going to drink the Kool-Aid for an entire season, and then when it goes horribly, you're going to smash Aaron Rodgers verbally and on social media. But for this season, you're all going to buy in, right? But say it out loud. How do you really think this is going to go this year? Tell me. How do you really think this is going to go in Pittsburgh this year, Steeler fans? Be honest with yourself. Have a heart-to-heart with yourself. And tell me how you really think it's going to go.
I do think there is, I hope, because Pittsburgh's a good town. It's a great town.
It
and
is.
they have to endure so much with that baseball team and the way that ownership runs that baseball team. And, the Steelers have been like the one reliable thing in that city. I hope, and I can kind of feel in my heart of hearts, that there is a ball-knowing Steeler fan out there that knows, hey, we got to be bad this year. Let's get a top 3 pick. Let's get the future of the franchise.
Well, he said he's setting up Will Howard. Kurt Helin talks basketball next. Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of SportsWrap. If it's a Wednesday, that means we're talking NBA. And if we're talking NBA, it means this guy's hanging out with us. Fresh off of 21 days on the road, as he just reminded me off air. Fresh as a daisy, that Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com.
As our fine friends at Cage the Elephant said, ain't no rest for the wicked, baby.
And then you've got, hey, let's do the draft, and then the NBA offseason, and then we're into the summer league here in Las Vegas. The only good part of that is I get to take you out to dinner. So that's the good part of that.
I look forward to that, and then right after summer league, I'm planning on 2 months of hibernation like a bear. It'll be great.
There isn't going to be an off season. You know that. This is going to be one of the craziest NBA off seasons, isn't it?
It has that potential. It absolutely has that potential. We'll see where it lands, but there's going to be late movement in this one. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is. Let's talk about the draft. I mean, it feels like it starts at number 2, doesn't it?
I don't even know that it starts at number 2. Dylan Harper is absolutely a lock at number 2, and the Spurs will trade you that pick if you give them a king's ransom. They are coming in with a big asking price to get him. So I don't know. I don't know that. Look, I think the Spurs take Harper at 2 because nobody's going to give that up. I think the draft really starts to get interesting at 3.
Which is Ace Bailey?
No, actually, he is one of the great stories of this draft, but Ace Bailey is going to, the question is how far is he going to fall after everything that's pre-draft for him? And people that don't know, he worked out for 0 teams. He when asked by Jonathan Givony at ESPN, well, what are your strengths and weaknesses? His weaknesses, I don't have any weaknesses. It, he has turned teams off, and the fact that there's flaws in his game. Like he scored at Rutgers making tough shots, which is a hard way to make a living in the NBA because those shots are tougher. And while he's got this great physical profile and could develop into, frankly, the second best player in this draft, he has that potential. He's going to fall down boards. We in our mock at NBC had him to Washington at 6, and that might be generous.
Does Philly move back then at 3? VJ Edgecombe is a guy that has been discussed there. Where do you think Philly's going? In this wide open Eastern Conference right now.
Philly would love to trade that pick. VJ Edgecombe is the guy there now, but with Bailey falling, Edgecombe, look, there was kind of a clear top 4 until Bailey fell off. Edgecombe becomes the guy. Poor man's Anthony Edwards, for people asking at home, like super athletic, can get to the rim, has to work on his shot, but like the guy's going to go get buckets at the very least here. He knows how to do that, and he tries hard on defense. He's got great athleticism. So there's a lot to like there, and there's a number of teams interested in trading up. Philly, I mean, sure, they could add him to the mix, but this isn't a difference maker enough. And if they want to win next year, they would love to add some shooting and some depth around, Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey. If they could, on the off chance that those 3 guys are actually healthy, like that's a really good team in this East.
Kurt, if you were to set a theme for this draft, if there were a banner going across the top of it, what would you put on that banner?
Trades, and more trades. I expect a lot of movement tonight, and that doesn't happen. We've already seen a few. Obviously, we've seen movement in the top 10 already with a trade, and Phoenix getting their pick back. But there's a sense that this is when the movement really starts around the NBA. There's a lot of good players in this draft, but after you get past the first 2, there are not like, hey, these are future lock all-star kind of guys. Like there's a lot of good players. But once you get past the first 2, it's a little bit eye of the beholder, and it'll get interesting to see, hey, our guy's still on the board. Can we trade up and get him? Does Charlotte want Edgecombe enough to move up a spot? There's just going to be a lot of that kind of movement.
Is there somebody?
By the way,
Brooklyn, go ahead.
Brooklyn, 5 first-round picks is a team to watch. Their highest pick is at 8, but they could package a couple of picks and a player and jump up if there's somebody they really like.
Well, in that case, is that a possibility for number 3 with Edgecombe?
Yeah, I'll tell you that they really like Harper at 2, but again,
but is that the Kings? But are those 5 picks the Kings ransom that you refer to?
I don't know that it's enough. The Spurs don't need a bunch more picks. They've already got a ton of picks. You've got to give them a player they like or something else. So I don't think the picks alone would do it, and I don't know that they're going to give up the players that they. I don't know if they even have the players. I don't know that Cam Johnson is really moving the needle is the problem. So I don't know where the Nets go, but I think they would like to move up from 8 and see what they can get at 4, 5, 6. So we'll see.
I'd feel weird if I didn't ask anything about Cooper Flagg. So in the process of working out and showing, the Mavericks, I guess, in this case, what he could do, what has been the consensus in terms of what we've seen out of Cooper Flagg?
The word that they kept using was impressive when I around here. And that's, of course, what they're going to say, and they're going to take him, but he is impressive. Like I told you, I have seen him play at the USA Select event last summer with Peyton Pritchard and Podziemski and Trey Murphy and Amen Thompson, and by day 3, you're like, he's the best player out there. At 17, hadn't played a day in college yet, and he's hitting 3-pointers over Anthony Davis. He's throwing putbacks over Bam Adebayo. Like, he's just out there making plays, and so yeah, he probably looks really good. He's also high motor, supposed to be a really good guy. So unsurprisingly, he's going to be impressive, and he's what you've got to like about him if you're a Dallas fan. The floor for him is probably multiple-time All-Star. Like, if he doesn't pan out, he's still going to pan out.
Is there anything as far as his rookie season goes with Dallas, where there are expectations with the Mavericks and that team competing, given the roster composition, given the move they made in moving Doncic and bringing in Anthony Davis, given the expectations of that team? If there is anything in terms of something that holds him back in that rookie year, is there anything that people point to?
I think the biggest concern will be just fit. And that's because Derek Lively is going to be your starting center. Anthony Davis is your starting four. Now you're moving Flagg to as the 3, and he can kind of do that, but he's not a natural 3. He's really more of a natural 4. And that's probably where he'll be. Look, Anthony Davis isn't going to be there forever. You'll eventually be able to shift him down. But that's a big front line, and I think it's going to work for them. It's just that's, I think, the biggest question, especially you're not going to have Kyrie setting the table for everybody for the first half of the year. They're going to go get another point guard. But without Kyrie to set the table, what's that going to feel like?
We're talking with Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com, hanging out with us to talk some NBA. We got into the draft. There have already been moves corresponding to this draft. I want to get into those. The Celtics already beginning the retooling. I don't want to call it rebuilding, but the retooling of this roster. We'll get into that as we continue on this Wednesday Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. Talking more NBA, Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Continue the conversation with him. All right, so the Celtics have already started making moves, as we knew they would, because they had to get below the apron, as it would be, and they had to move salary. Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis no longer a part of this team. And the Holiday one is one they're going to feel. I mean, look, and they got back a great haul for him. But this is one they're going to feel, and not even just on the court, but in the locker room, in that community. I mean, he was a really valuable presence in that Celtics organization.
Look, he has 2 championships and a gold medal, and it's not an accident, right? Like he is a great, can do it all guard in terms of, hey, elite defender, can hit his threes, can do some playmaking. The former UCLA Bruin just does a little bit of everything. And you're spot on, by the way, about, look, he and his wife, he got to Boston. He's like, hey, everybody come over to my place. We're throwing a barbecue. I want to get to know you on my place. Come on over. Like, he helps them bond. He helps bring a team together. He is active in the community. He is loved everywhere. They are going to miss him. And Portland's saying they're going to keep him. Yeah, we'll see. But they're going to want a lot for him. And if I'm a championship team, look, I think they keep him the first half of the year. Mentor Scoot Henderson, mentor those young players they've got up there.
That team made a run late last year.
They did. They started to look good the second half of last year. And I think that's one of the interesting questions of the West next year is how much of a mirage was that? And, teams not trying in March versus them actually trying, and how much of that was real. But he helps make that more real. He gives them that guy. And then come the deadline, there might be teams giving the kind of package that Portland will really listen to again to trade him. So we'll see. We'll see how long he's there. But that's a great fit for Portland. And you're right, Boston, that's one they're going to miss. Like, I love Derek White, but they're going to miss having 2 versions of that kind of guy out there.
Hawks, Celtics, and Nets, 3-team deal. Porzingis and a second-round pick to the Hawks. Terrence Mann, Atlanta's number 22 pick to the Nets. Niang and a second-rounder go to the Celtics. What did you make of that deal when you saw it?
It's interesting for the Hawks, isn't it? Suddenly you're like, man, Trae Young, for all his, flaws that you could try to point out on defense, if you put a healthy Porzingis as a pick and pop partner with him and somebody who can protect the rim behind him, and they've got Jalen Johnson, who was out a bunch of last year, but comes back healthy, and Zachary Risacher takes a step forward after he played well at the end of last year. In this East, it's interesting. Like, I don't think they're contenders, but they have the potential to be much more threatening in the East than they thought. It's a lot of ifs. It's a lot of click stuff that's got to come together for them. But I can't believe I'm saying this. The Hawks could be really interesting next year. Brooklyn, look, they're rebuilding. And Boston fans will love George Niang. Like, he'll fit in great there. He'll play well for them. Mini Bus is good.
What else do you see the Celtics doing vis-a-vis this roster beyond the draft or anything like that? What other moves do you potentially see them making here?
The big one, look, they saved about a little under $28 million in salary, but that equates, because of the repeater tax and the second apron and everything, it actually equates to over $200 million in savings on the bottom line. So, like, they're now below the second apron. That gives them some flexibility. The real question now is teams are calling about Jaylen Brown. are the offers good enough? Would you do it? Would you,
Wow.
I mean, Jason, would you trade Jaylen Brown right now?
No.
Yeah. See, I
don't.
can't imagine it either because you've won a title with the Jays. I would keep them together. But if the offer's big enough, it'll be interesting. But it would take a massive offer for me to seriously consider it. And I don't want picks and future stuff because I've still got Jason Tatum coming back in a year and I want to contend. So
Yeah,
what
to
do you
me,
do?
that's what I'm saying is you can run this thing back in a year. And yes, I know a year feels like a long time, but it's really not. And you bring this group back together in a year. Yeah, I can't see doing that. Let me ask you about the Pelicans who made a move. It wasn't the move we were waiting for. Where we're all wondering, is Zion Williamson going to go? Pelicans trade C.J. McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, and a future second-round pick to the Wizards, Jordan Poole, Sadiq Bey, and a number 40 pick in the draft on Wednesday night. So what are the Pelicans doing here? And is Zion Williamson, is there any potential for him to be moved before the draft, during this draft, after the draft? What's going on with Zion? How much of this civil lawsuit plays into it? Is it baked into the cake when it comes to Zion? What do we have here?
Look, the civil lawsuit stuff certainly doesn't help his trade value, but they can't get value back for him. The reason they're not trading him is simply that the market for him is way below what they're going to want back for him. They're going to play him next year, hope he plays 60, 65 games, because if he does, look, he still puts up numbers. He's still explosive. He's still unstoppable. He was very impressive in the 30 games he played last year. It's just a matter of health. If you get him to play 60 games, would a team bite if he comes back a little thinner? Jordan Poole gives them secondary shot creation that they thought they were supposed to get with DeJounte Murray and C.J. McCollum. Now Murray's out for the year. Remember, he's got an Achilles. He's going to miss a chunk of next season. They needed more shot creation. Jordan Poole, quietly in Washington, and nobody watched the Wizards, and I don't blame you, man. I did. I get paid, and I really struggled to watch the Wizards at time last year. He actually had a pretty good year. His playmaking was better. His scoring was back up. He had kind of a bounce back year, so he gives them some of that.
The Lakers still need a big. What are we looking at there?
That's a really good question. The guy who's the best fit, Daniel Gafford. I'm going to guess the Mavericks don't want to make another trade with the Lakers that help them out for some reason. So I don't see how that comes together. So that leaves you with Nick Claxton, who's not a perfect fit, but could work out of, he's certainly bouncy and has some skills in Brooklyn. Or you're going to hope something else shakes out. You're going to hope that somebody drafts a quality center in the draft and then says, hey, man, we're going to make our guy available. Because right now you're talking about hoping Clint Capella or something like, they're fine, but they don't have the kind of guy they need out there. They need to find that guy, and I think they're hoping that guy shakes out after the draft in a couple more moves.
Last 30 seconds, see the Warriors doing anything leading into this draft? Any potential roster moves there?
They're certainly been active looking for trades for depth and stuff. Look, they want to win. They've got Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry now. They've been really active, but they haven't really made any moves yet. There's nothing that really thrills them yet. The weird thing to say about that team now, but they need more shooting. Jimmy Butler's not that guy. So they need to go find shooters. The problem they're running into is there's 29 other teams that need more shooting.
Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Check him out there, especially during the draft. Always appreciate you, my friend. You're almost across the finish line. You're almost there.
We're getting there.
All right. Appreciate you, my friend. We're coming back. More Sports Wrap. Dale Scott joins us on the other side. This Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap continues. Good to have you all with us. Let's talk about Major League Baseball umpiring. Just umpiring in general, even. And to do that, we bring in our friend Dale Scott, former big league umpire. Did it for a long time. Author, The Umpire is Out. You can catch him on the MLB Showcase, MLB Network, also Apple TV on their Friday night broadcasts. Whenever there's a review, they go to him. He gives his opinion on whether they got it right, got it wrong. and he joins us here on the show. So if we were doing a state of the umpiring, if it was the state of the umpire address, and you got up in front of baseball and you were giving that address, how would you say the state of umpiring is right now, Dale?
The state of umpiring is not nearly as bad as you would think it is if you read social media, and especially this week after the NCAA college World Series and the first inning ejection there. Jason, it's not as bad as everybody says it is, okay? But it is, and umpiring is changing, because of technology. And it's something that part of the technology I had to deal with, but I certainly didn't have to deal with automated ball strike system and what I'm pretty sure MLB will be doing during the season next year. It's not official, I don't think, but I'd be surprised if they don't go do it. It's only been in the works here for about 8 years now, so they're trying to perfect this thing. Yeah. So anyway, that's what I would say. I mean, like a lot of things, sometimes. Well, let me put it this way. Marty Springstead was a mentor to me. He was a longtime American League umpire, and then he was the head of the American League umpires when I was hired in '86. And then, of course, we combined in 2000. So one staff now, and he worked for a few years before he retired after that. But Marty used to tell me it's never as bad as you think it is, and it's never as good as you think it is. Just more of an even keel, and really that's kind of a good mentality for an umpire, because if I can go out and slay a plate job in a big game and think man, I'm on the top of the world, and guess what, you're only as good as your last call. So you could go out the next day. And screw the pooch on a play at third or something with the tying run or something, and you're back in the gutter. So it's a good philosophy to don't get too high. It's never as good as you think it is, and it's usually never as bad as you think it is either. Just go out and do your job. It's the thing about umpire, and it's the same thing with players. You make a mistake, you can't dwell on it because boom, you got another one coming. So it's a mental game. But the state of umpiring, not as bad as it sounds.
Dale, you mentioned it there, and we kind of have to address the elephant in the room. The reason that umpiring has been at the forefront of baseball discussion for the better part of the last 5 days was that Coastal Carolina ejection. What did you make of the manager for Coastal Carolina and their bench coach being ejected in the first inning of Game 2 of the National Championship Series?
Well, it was very unfortunate, but it was absolutely what the umpire had to do. Angel Campos was the umpire. He worked 500 plus games in the big leagues. He never got a job out of it. But I worked, I think, 27 games with him when he was going up and down from AAA. And ironically, Angel's a good umpire. He's a great guy. But part of what his learning process when he was going up and down is he actually let players and managers go too far. I mean, he wouldn't eject him, and which is ironic, from what happened in that game, in that first inning ejection. Look, I don't know the college rule book that well because I never really worked college ball, but I do know from talking to college umpires that I know, it was almost a textbook ejection on balls and strikes. In fact, he ended up warning him a third time. Now, you only have to give one. But it is a huge game. Angel knows that. He doesn't want to just be dumping guys in. But trust me, this is a umpire nightmare to have a huge championship game, to have a big S house right in the first inning. I mean, let alone any time during the game. But he warned him. He warned him again. He warned him again. And not only did the coach ignore the warnings and just bulldoze right through him, he then, he also came out of the dugout onto the field as he's complaining about balls and strikes. A fan may not agree with this, but as an umpire, you have no recourse. One thing you got to remember, guys, when you're out there umpiring, he's having an issue with Team A. Team B's sitting there watching the whole thing. So if we let Team A just go ahead and just yell and scream and have 2 or 3 warnings and no penalty, what does that tell Team B? Oh, guess what, guys? We get to do that too, And then if you don't let them do that, well, then where's the fairness there? So when you're umpiring 2 teams, 2 dugouts every time, even though you may have an issue right now with one of them, the other one's right there seeing what's going on. So we more times than not, in fact, way more times than not, almost always a player or coach runs themselves. And And by that, I mean they either say or do something that's going to get them ejected. That coach is an experienced coach. I mean, head coach for a few years, but he was assistant coach for a long time. Obviously he played. He knows what he can do and what he can't do.
Does an umpire still in that spot, with all of that being said, given the gravity of the moment and the game we're in, does there have to be some level of subjectivity, of understanding that moment and figuring out a way to diffuse it without him being ejected, though?
Yes, and part of that was giving multiple warnings when you by rule only have to give one. He was trying to give him a chance to stand down. Okay, I hear you. Here's a warning. Here's another one. I mean, when he keeps pushing it, and I mean, how many warnings do you give, right? Well, I got another warning. Well, that's another one. After a while, that becomes a joke, right? So yes, it was a huge game. All those umpires know that. They know exactly what type of game it is. And they understand, teams, and baseball's a frustrating game anyway, right? For players and everything, because you're out more than you're safe. And
sure.
So all that is on the level. He tried to give him a chance to back down, and the coach just decided not to take that avenue.
We're talking about the state of umpiring with Dale Scott, former big league umpire, hanging out with us on Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. We got a lot more to do. Continuing with Sports Wrap and our conversation on the state of umpiring with our friend Dale Scott. Does a great job on all things umpiring, MLB Network, Apple TV, on their broadcasts, on the reviews. Author of The Umpire Is Out, which we'll talk to him about a little later on as well. Sam, go ahead.
Dale, it feels to me like in recent years we've seen a lot more on-field confrontation between offensive and defensive players, right? I don't even want to just say pitchers and hitters because it's not anymore. Obviously, you were the crew chief for one of the most notable, the year before you retired, I believe, between Bautista and Odor. I'm curious, as an umpire, what's kind of the mindset when all hell breaks loose on the field and two guys start swinging at each other?
Well, if you can get in between or stop it, great. But as you know, in baseball, there's that small window, and then everybody comes, including the bullpen, which makes me insane. I mean, I think there could be rules like basketball or hockey that, to avoid that, but that they don't want to do that. Whatever, that's fine. But once it gets to the point where everybody's out, coming out on the field and everything, there's four of us. Well, in the big leagues, there's four of us. There's 50 of them. I'm not a math major, but I got a pretty good idea that we're outnumbered. And now you just, sit back and take numbers and just observe. Once it dies down, you can clear it out a little bit. Then the four of us get together and say, who do you got? What do you got? And we'll figure out what we're going to do as far as ejections or any penalties and that kind of stuff.
Dale, how much is the histrionics that we see from players now, the bat flip, the dancing going around the bases, all of these different things, how much is that lending itself to the confrontations that we're seeing, and how much are umpires just, not outwardly, but inwardly, and I know you probably talk to a lot of umpires, are they just cringing at this stuff? Because it's not just at the major league level. Hell, we're seeing it in little leagues, now. How much are umpires just cringing at the showboating, and how much is that lending itself to this?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It seems like this. I don't want to sound like an old fogey here, but I mean, it seems like the younger generation they want more excitement. They want to see. It's kind of like touchdown dances or something. I remember
or the
when the
NBA
NFL said, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
You can't do anything. You have to, and they would penalize, and the college would penalize. Well, they've loosened that up a little bit because that's what people want to see. The guy scored a touchdown, he's excited, whatever. Baseball's always had that unwritten rule. You hit the ball, it's a home run. You do a good trot, not slow, not showing up the pitcher. There's a lot of showing up stuff, unwritten rules. I think that is changing too. I think maybe the Savannah Bananas have something to do with that. I don't know, but people in all sports, but also certainly in baseball, because it was a very conservative, very P's and Q's kind of etiquette that players were supposed to abide by, and a lot of that is being pushed or bypassed now. Umpires, part of it. I think part of it because it's the same kind of generation of ball player. They understand it a little bit more. Where a more veteran guy, a guy who was from maybe a little bit of a different era, and it's just finishing up his career, and would really not like it at all, right? Because that's the era that he came through. That didn't happen. So, the umpires, I think, are just trying to monitor everything and take a look at it. I'll be honest with you, some of the stuff that I've seen in a celebratory kind of thing now, and really there haven't been consequences, where if that same thing had been done 5-10 years ago, there would have absolutely. So I think a little bit of that is being absorbed and not as a big a penalty, so to speak, from the players that it used to be. But still, there's definitely an etiquette still out there, and I think it's being pushed a little bit and stretched a little bit, and we'll see how it all works out.
Now, Dale, we've heard catchers around the league, most recently and most notably probably Cal Raleigh this week on a podcast, said during an interview that this year the zone seems tighter to him, and other catchers have attested to this. Is there anything that you're aware of that the Umpires Association may be doing differently in terms of auditing calling balls and strikes this year that may have caused that zone to proverbially shrink?
Well, because MLB did shrink it. they have, they're everything they've been doing here the last few years is working to this ABS automated ball strike system. They changed where where the tracking decides when it's a strike. In other words, the ball used to be at the front edge of the plate. Once it entered the front edge of the plate, now it's in the middle of the plate. So you can get a curveball that at the front edge is right at the knees on the outside corner, but it's moving, and at the middle of the plate, it's now off the plate. Without that, used to be a strike. Now that technically is a ball the way it's tracked. But they've taken away what umpires used to have a buffer zone of an inch on each side. You got to remember too the ball is not quite 3 inches. The circumference, whatever it is. What I'm trying to say is, I'm not a math major, I'm not a geometry major, but no, what I'm trying to say is that any part of the ball touches or goes over any part of the plate in the zone, that is to be a strike. And so you could have a ball that is just nicking the outside corner, and most of the ball is outside, which means a 17-inch plate suddenly is almost 20 inches because of that. There used to be a little buffer there for evaluation purposes of umpires. They've taken that away. It's now like a quarter of an inch. The zone is smaller.
All right, we got more to do with Dale Scott on the other side, the former Major League umpire. He's got a book, The Umpire is Out. It's been out for a few years, I think. Well, maybe a little longer than a few years. We're going to talk to him about it. The reaction to the book. He came out of the closet after his career was over. We'll talk to him about that as we continue on this edition of Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to talk about with Dale Scott. Welcome back to this edition of Sports Wrap. Talking with our friend Dale Scott, former big league umpire. Catch him on the Apple TV broadcast, also the MLB Network Showcase. All things umpiring with him, but also in this LGBTQ Pride Month. Thought I'd get a segment in with him. He's the author of The Umpire is Out, which you could see behind him. What was that, 8? Is that what's that been out, about 8 years now, Dale? No, really.
It's only been out
6 years?
3.
No, really?
Yeah.
No, because I talked to you I thought I talked to you in 19. I swore I talked to you in 19.
Yeah, no, we started writing in October of 2020. That's when we signed the contract, and it was not until actually May in 22 until.
Because I remember interviewing you in 19. I thought it was out then. I didn't realize. Oh, you had come out. You had just come out. Right around then.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Okay, so you had just come out around then. What has been, in the few years, thinking back now here over these last few years, and you've gone and done book signings, you've gone to ballparks. Try and give me a sense for what the feedback has been from people as you travel around the country and talk about this book.
Well, the first summer that it was published in May, although the book was available a few months before that, but it was in 2022. And that summer I went to 8 MLB Pride Nights and did book signings and threw out the first pitch at a couple of them, and not well, I might add. And it was very positive. I mean, the people that I dealt with at the ballparks, very positive. Now, there has been some issues. There was the one year that the Tampa relief or the pitching staff, a lot of the guys wouldn't wear the armband or whatever it was that was on the uniform. We've seen it in other sports. We saw NHL have some issues when on their Pride Nights wearing the jerseys or whatever. So it's not all unicorns and rose petals.
No,
So,
it certainly is. I just saw Jonathan Lucroy put out a thing about when the Mets had their Pride Night and the kiss cam showed two guys kissing on the scoreboard in center field, and Jonathan Lucroy put up a comment, "Oh, there's kids in the stadium," and I had to respond. I couldn't resist. But there are clearly still some animus, some discomfort, some fear, if you want to use that word, of the LGBTQ community being mainstream within the sports world.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that our political environment has changed. We have a pretty conservative government now that's not necessarily allies to the gay community, and so that gives I think a lot of people more. They'll speak out more because they feel like they can and are able to. You're never going to have, John, I'm sure, Jason, you've heard, when are they going to have, straight night? They have Pride Night. Why do they, well, and of course the standard answer, that's every night. I think overall, for the most part, I think it's really a non-issue for players and managers. Hey, listen, if you can hit, if you can pitch, if you can help us win games or whatever, being gay, I don't think is a big deal. If you can't, then you're going to get off the team. But there are certain people that have either religious or other issues with it. Those are the people that hopefully, by visibility and stuff, maybe they'll finally figure out that there's a lot of their acquaintances or friends, or maybe not a lot, but I mean, they have people in their lives that are gay that they don't even know it. Now they find out, and it's like, oh, wow, I guess maybe it would. I mean, that's really kind of what happened to me, right? I mean, before I came out publicly, the whole staff, umpire staff, knew I was gay. Eventually, not when I first started, but as time went on, the league meaning the people that in New York that signed my checks and stuff, they knew. There was no official announcement at that time. It just they knew it, and it didn't affect my work. It didn't affect my camaraderie with my crew. I mean, and that kind of stuff. So it wasn't an issue. And actually, the day that I publicly came out, I remember getting a call from the league office, and Peter Woodfork at the time, who was working there, and I hadn't given them a heads up at all that this was going to be happening, and I thought, oh, I saw it on the caller ID. I thought, this may not be good, right? I answered it. He was fine. The only reason he called, he said, hey, that's a personal choice, and that's fine. In fact, he goes, you're probably getting way more phone calls than we are. He said, the only reason I'm calling is I'm just going to read you a statement that Commissioner Seelig is going to put out before we put it out, and that kind of thing. So,
can I ask you something? Are you surprised in sports in general that we haven't seen more athletes come out in light of the acceptance and gay marriage being, legalized and all these different things? Are you surprised that we haven't seen more athletes come out?
Yes, and I'm really surprised we haven't seen any baseball players come out. I mean, we've had a 2 or 3 minor leaguers at various times, but we've never had an active player come out, and that kind of surprises me. I mean, 10 years ago when Billy Beane was hired with MLB, Commissioner Seelig hired him, and that liaison, it was ahead of the curve. No other major sports, big league sports league had done that, as far as I know. And I thought, this is going to eventually just open the door, to let a player feel safe of, doing this. And we haven't seen it. So I am surprised by that.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, but I am surprised by that.
And thanks again to Dale Scott for hanging out with us on the show. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of Sports Wrap. Thanks to Kurt Helin, Sam Yarnell, you for watching. Make sure to check out our podcast and our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. I'm Jason. We'll see you back here on Thursday for more Sports Wrap.